Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and in this video we are going to make some gravy for your Keto Thanksgiving. But before we start, a little disclaimer. This gravy, as I'm going to make it, is a good gravy, but it's not an amazing gravy. What keeps it from being a really fantastic gravy is 4 tablespoons of roasted turkey pan drippings, which I don't have. So instead, I'm going to be using butter, which I'm going to try and get into a brown butter and onion sort of flavor that is going to give this a little bit more depth, but not the same depth of flavor that having 4 tablespoons of roasted turkey pan drippings is going to give you. So if you have those pan drippings, don't do the butter thing that I'm going to do. Use the pan drippings and then just follow the rest of the recipe as is. That said, if you don't have the pan drippings, this is a fine gravy. It's just not the one that's going to make me do the super yummy face when I do the taste test. I'll make a happy face, but not the super wow face. So with that out of the way, let's get to making it. Before we start, I have 2 cups of chicken broth. To that, I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of sodium citrate. Whisk to combine, and then we'll set this aside. We'll start by melting 4 tablespoons of butter over medium-low heat. Remember, this is not something you need to do if you have the pan drippings. We are going to brown this butter. Now, if you've ever browned butter before, you know that it can go from brown to burned very quickly. We want to make sure that we're either whisking or swirling the pan regularly. Now you can see some of the milk solids are starting to separate. That means we're on our way. When you're browning butter, it's important to be patient with it. You may be tempted to turn up the heat, but because you can go from browned to burnt very rapidly, I recommend you take the extra time and keep it at medium-low. Okay, you can see that some of the milk solids have started to cook and fall out down into the bottom, kind of leaving a little bit of a brown sort of residue. At this point, we want to make sure that we're stirring constantly. And it's really starting to release that nutty flavor. Okay, I'm going to take it off the heat because I do not want this to burn. I just want that nutty taste to it. Then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of diced white onion. Now I'm going to put it back on low heat, and at this point, kind of consider it the same as having my 4 tablespoons of turkey drippings. I'm going to add a heaping tablespoon of my stuffing or dressing seasoning, which I will link to right here, and I'll continue whisking for a minute or two while I let those herbs really release their aromatics into the butter. Now we'll whisk in our chicken broth. We'll add 2 pinches of salt and a good 20 grinds of fresh ground black pepper. Now you'll notice as you're making this that you'll still see some fat on the surface. The sodium citrate didn't fully emulsify this. That's okay because we have 2 more ingredients that we're going to add that will thicken up and emulsify this gravy. We're going to bring the heat up to medium so that we can get this to a simmer. Once we reach a simmer, we're going to remove this from the heat and go into the blender with it. You can also use an immersion blender. To finish the thickening, we're going to use 2 more ingredients, glucomannan and xanthan gum. Now when you're blending hot liquids, it's important to let the steam vent, and I like to have a towel handy just in case to be safe. We'll start this blending at low. We'll then add 1/2 teaspoon of glucomannan and 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum. We'll put our gravy back in our saucepan and set the heat to medium. Now, typically what I have seen as the test for the right consistency of gravy is if it coats the back of a spoon. And you can draw a line through it like that. The gravy's bubbling, so we can take the heat back down, and you can hold it at low temp until you're ready to serve. Now, normally I would put this in a gravy boat, but I wanted you to have a chance to see the color on this. And this is with the browned butter, not with the pan drippings. And you can see that it's sort of a light chicken gravy sort of color. Now, there's something about consuming gravy just straight up out of a cup like this that feels like it should be part of a Jim Gaffigan routine. But we're going to give this a little taste. I like it. It's good, but like I said at the intro, it's not mind-blowing. You don't get that depth of flavor that you would get from the pan drippings. It's still a perfectly tasty gravy, and it will work just fine in a pinch. Now, one thing you will find once this chills to about room temperature is it does sort of become a little bit like a gelatin. Don't worry about that. It reheats just fine and goes back into its total liquid gravy state. So if you try this recipe and alter it in some way, whether it's with the pan drippings or adding some additional seasoning, and you find it works out really well, please let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and if you want to be notified whenever I release a new video, click that bell. And thanks for watching.